Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? You can't.
Oh God, I can't hear you. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Oh,
you.
thank gosh. Thank God. Okay. And see me.
But you
Okay,
can't
so
hear me?
I can when you talk because we're on a sort of the system where whoever
Oh, I'm
speaks.
fine.
All right, it's all good.
Well, we'll just wait for other people to come in and then we're rolling.
Very good. I will tune in a few minutes. I'm gonna mute my microphone.
Hey Bill, can you hear me? This is Kent.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, good. Yes, and I can see you. Good.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, we're in pretty good shape. Technology is very complicated.
Yeah, I
It's just
see that.
never easy. I'm used to it because I've been doing it for so long, but it's just nothing ever
You
changes.
just have to get a thick skin. Just deal with it.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really have to be thick-skinned about tech sometimes, and it's a good way to describe it. Or tolerant of its many foibles, shall we say. Wow, what are you doing? You're playing around with this 3D picture of your user interface there?
I'm trying to get trying to flip this so that it's the right way. Somehow it's flopped or whatever.
Yeah,
Not sure
that's
why.
all ugly looking. And it's like distorted to the point where I can't see a darn thing,
Oh, really?
just so you
Okay.
know. I don't know if
All
that's going to
right.
be true of mine. If it is, then we have an interesting problem, don't we?
Let's see. Aspect ratio. Let's put this
Yeah,
on
but I do see
zero.
what you mean. It's got in my picture, the stuff that's normally on the left is all on the right. And it looks almost, I can't read any of the words on the screen, but it looks like all the words, there you go.
Does that look better?
And now
Let
it's
me
now
see.
it's aligned. Now it's non-aligned. There you go.
Okay.
Now you're aligned and rectangular.
Aha.
It's still blurry to the point where I can't see a bloody thing,
And what's
but
that?
that's not
Okay.
necessarily critical for now.
Okay. Hmm. It's like it's a screen within a screen or something. Strange.
That often happens with video type things. You get this feedback loop.
Hmm. me see if I can delete this and add it again.
Well, we have 2 people. Patricia, we're expecting a bunch of other people who just haven't joined quite yet.
Yes, that is correct. We have at least a few. Apparently Noe's there, but we have 10 people total confirmed, and that's actually the max. I later found out that we can only have a maximum of 10 people on the Google Hangout. So I had to tell a few people that they're going to need to just be observers, which is fine for most people anyway.
Yeah, that shouldn't be an issue.
So I sent an email to everyone, and hopefully, you know, they will be on in a couple minutes. But you know, these things go. Yeah, there's likely to be a few drop-offs, but I would think there's going to be a few people that come in, tune in. Ken, you got the email, and obviously, did you download the files from the website?
The files. Oh, like the handouts?
Correct.
Yes, I have the I have them printed out right here.
Wow, you're a good student.
Nice. Well, we're going to have a good conversation today. Hopefully we'll get a lot accomplished and people are going to learn a bunch and all that good thing.
And if this will be recorded, so anyone who doesn't get to tune in will get to watch it on the recording.
There we go. I got my Game Salad screen flopped so that it's the right way. That's good.
What I suggest we do, Patricia, is in a few minutes we just go ahead and start rolling through some of the preliminaries.
Yes, Bill, I'd like to start out with showing the overview, and then you can go ahead and go right in. Right now we're at 131, which class start, I'm sorry, 131. 231.
So we're officially started.
Class started a minute ago.
If people come in late, they can get what they get.
Like I know that Terry, I'm going to just do one thing if we can. I know that Terry Bruda just called me, and I know she was one of the ones I was initially just, you know, talking with. So let me just see if she got the email. Okay, I'm going to mute my phone. I mean the.
Your arm is cut off.
Did you get caught up?
Yeah.
You're seeing my little you're seeing the little Wizard of Oz curtain there.
Yeah, that's right. That's cool.
Yeah. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
It's all smoke and mirrors. Don't tell anybody.
All right, I'll make sure that I never let it out. Never let on to the secret.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you connected at all with Game Salad, or are
No.
you just kind of a video industry mentor, or?
I am one of the original video game programmers from the very first generation of video games.
Okay.
I wrote games for the Mattel and Television back in the early 80s.
Oh, wow.
So, and I do all sorts of different software now. Just whatever cool thing strikes my fancy, and people are willing to fund my company to develop. So.
Excellent. And you're here in Orange County or LA or?
Yeah, Orange County.
Okay.
Irvine.
Yeah, I know a lot of the high schools teachers are or were involved with Acme Animation. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was more of a kind of a feature animation exposure, and so doing pencil tests and basic kind of 2D animation, Flash and Toon Boom Studio, things like that. So a little bit of Blender or Maya, things like that. But yeah, so. The gaming certainly, is very popular with the high school set, to say the least. So, if there's some way that we can get them, some of the kids putting together something that they can actually use or share with their friends, that it seems like that would be a really big hit.
Yeah, well, and more importantly, it's all about developing skill sets. And the way to develop people's skill sets is to give them something that they're excited to do, that they want to do, that they're motivated to do even if they're not in school, and so hopefully this kind of thing will spark them to be excited about being creative and doing creative projects, and give them greater technical skills, all of which are just nothing but good.
Right. I guess from my perspective, as a high school teacher, and I animation, I teach one class of animation, but otherwise I'm teaching, drawing and painting, and then I teach a couple sections of college and career planning.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, Patricia.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Nod your head wide if you can hear me speaking.
Yeah, can't you hear us?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I just talked to Terry, and she somehow got a link to be an observer, so she isn't listed on the left. And my thinking is that I must have sent a link to being both an observer and a participant. And so my assumption is that maybe some of the teachers are not listed because they're now just observing. So let's just proceed with that assumption.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Now, I'm locked in right now as the communicator, so I'm going to unlock it so that then, well, what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to go over our agenda for the day, and then I'm going to hand the mic over to Bill Fisher. Okay?
Thumbs up.
Okay, so the agenda today is we're basically, our intention here is to teach teachers the basics of how to go about making a game so as to be better facilitators for the students who wish to pursue making a game for submission, in particular for the annual IEEE Student Game Competition. So what we're going to be doing in the next hour and a half is Bill Fisher, who is going to be providing an overview of what makes a good game. Followed by myself, I will be giving a demo. Hold on, I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. Okay, so next is, next is I'll be going ahead and giving a lecture on the basics of creating game assets in Photoshop and in animation. And then Bill will take over again and give an overview of Game Salad and what makes Game Salad the software that we've chosen for this to be used by the students. And then he'll be providing a quick little lesson on how to import your assets into Game Salad and activate an animation. Well, at the end of the class, we will give a brief assignment to the teachers, and you can go ahead and do those steps, and Bill and I will be standing by to help you with those steps. And then we will finally provide a homework assignment with a tutorial that is proven to be a pretty good one and easy to follow. And we'll also give you access to all the handouts and lessons that we gave today, and be available throughout the week if you have questions. Really, the intention is, the ultimate intention is not to, is simply to have you have an orientation of Game Salad and the basics of creating the art assets for it, because most of you are art teachers, and so that you can be a facilitator for your students, and if you so desire to go further on your own, to pursue learning how to work Game Salad in more depth, then we support you in that. Okay, so that, let me go ahead and go back to our presentation so I can release the screen to Bill.
All right. I see me on your screen, coming to my screen. So you want me to go ahead and screen share my system now? Should I be able to do that? All right. We're going to do the entire screen thing since that seemed to work better. In theory, I am sharing my screen. And conveniently, it has this wonderful window that gets right in the way of my seeing what I'm doing. Okay. Can everybody see what I've got on my screen now? I've just gone to full screen mode, so I can't see any of you anymore.
Monster Whack teaching Game Salad.
Good, and then we can see. All right, let me just start rolling. But so the goal, as Patricia said, the goal here is to get folks informed enough to be able to have the conversation with kids about making games and what is a game and just some of the basic concepts behind it, because there really isn't that much that needs to be done in terms of like hours or weeks of preparation. It really isn't that hard once you know the basics, and therefore it's a fairly straightforward process to get them launched in the right direction, and especially with some tutorials that are out there, it makes it fairly easy. We're not expecting people to make earth-shattering games that are going to go into the App Store and make zillions of dollars of money, and in fact, one of the things we should be clear about that is that that's not at all the point here. Nor do we expect people to, be doing state-of-the-art development. That's really beyond the scope of what we're doing here, because at the high school level, we want people to understand concepts and develop skills that they can then refine. And the best way to do that, with programming as well as art, because programming is a very highly creative skill, is to do it, right? And so very much like in your drawing, painting, and animation classes, the best thing you can possibly do is say, hey, make a bunch of art, and you'll get better at it as you see what you're doing and what you want to do, and you find that vision. The same is true of programming in a lot of senses, so we want to be able to get people to do that. One thing that is not on any of my slides, but I wanted to cover here before we move forward, is the IEEE GameSig contest, because a lot of the reason why Patricia and I are doing this is to get people excited about the contest that we're doing. And the way this thing works is, for those who don't know, IEEE is the Institute for Electronic and Electrical Engineers. It's the largest professional services organization in the world, with about 400 and some odd thousand members. And it does a lot of standardization. So those USB keys that you've got that you're using for storing data and moving them around, the reason why those work well is because of IEEE. And one of the things that we've done is we've started a programming contest that lets people do games and gives prizes for the best games. And what it's really trying to do is develop people who are able to become programmers and join the game industry by really proving through the test of fire that they can finish something that they start, that they can have a specific goal, make a game. We don't care what it is. We don't care what platform it runs on. Just make something that is worth showing off and bragging about. And we've learned through experience that when you're teaching people these kinds of things, that the best way to get them motivated and excited is to give them a goal to shoot for, and to make sure that they understand that they really do have to finish what they start. Because, as you probably are very aware, I mean, I'm not a high school teacher, but I can imagine that there are a lot of high school kids out there who want to do stuff and they kind of goof around with it for a while, and then they give up, they get bored, they get distracted, and they don't really finish what they start. And that discipline of finishing is very important. So anyway, that's the theory, that's what we're doing. And this year we're opening it up to high school teams as well as college teams. So right now we have intercollegiate is what we call it, because it's for colleges. But we're going to accept any and all submissions that come in from teams that are affiliated with high schools. So our ideal here is that the teachers who are watching this today are going to be able to work with people at their schools, and they could be people at art. It could be preferably a interdisciplinary team of artists and technical people, and possibly people among multiple schools. It does not have to be at a single school, who could then submit a game. And that's what we're hoping for. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about where we're going to go today and get some idea of the kind of things we want to do. The 30-second preview, I'm not going to go into all the stuff that's going on here, but I've done games for 30 years now, 35 almost. Started out at Mattel Electronics, then I started my own company. We've done everything from arcade games to PC games to console games, mostly, and now we're doing mostly mobile type stuff, and restaurants and all different kinds of things, even a board game. I think you all know Patricia. She said not to dwell too much on her slide, so I'm not going to dwell too much on her slide. But as you know, she's been around and done a whole bunch of art stuff, and really is great at coordinating these kinds of things. So again, why we're here today is to learn about teaching games. And by the way, I'm more than happy to have people interrupt and ask questions along the way. This isn't lecture as much as it is hangout. But I'll do a fair amount of talking, but feel free to ping me. Now note that I can't see the chat right now because I've gone full screen to make it easier for everybody to see what I'm talking about. So with that in mind, what makes a good game? We're going to talk about game logic, and this is a very simple conversation, but I want to give you a taste of where it goes, and also talk a little bit about the career side of things, because obviously everybody's going to ask you, well, what's it like to work in a game company? So we'll talk for 5 minutes about that as well, and then we're going to get to the basics of using this thing called Game Salad, which is a toolkit that helps you build simple games. It's not the be-all and end-all. It's not something you would probably want to do a commercial product in, although some people have tried to do that. But what it is it's a nice way of dipping your toe in the water without having to be super technically savvy. And there's obviously a big advantage to that. The folks here are really our first round of teachers. We've never done this before, and we're really excited to be able to do it because this is an outreach type of thing for us. Our hope is that you'll be able to mentor students, to help other teachers to join in, to find out what's going on, to learn the things that need to be done, to give us feedback on how things can be done better, and ultimately to help students build games for the competition. So let's go ahead and start talking about what it is that makes a good game. Let me ask folks, Patricia, if people aren't on the chat, they're not going to be able to chip in at this point, are they? They're not. Well, then let me think about for a second about what you believe are the features of a good game. And then I'll bring up my list of what I think the features of a good game are. So here's my list. The number one thing about a good game is that it has to be what I call engaging. And it's a little bit different than fun. So let me explain what that means. What engaging means is that it grabs your attention, it holds your attention. Fun is a very vague concept. Engaging is a more precise concept of, you're paying attention to the screen, you're doing things that you're supposed to be doing. It isn't necessarily something that you would say, wow, it's the greatest thing I ever did, but it's got you hooked. to the extent that you're working with it and you're still working with it. And I'll give you a detailed example of that in a second. Secondly, it has to have good gameplay. You know, if you look at the great games that have existed over time, Pac-Man or Space Invaders or more modern type games, even something as simple as Angry Birds, but also, you know, some of the color matching games, the Tetris style games, Tetris Descendants, I guess I should say, that are out there. There's a lot of them, you know, out there, Bejeweled and so forth. The thing is that their gameplay is good, and what that means is that it feels right, and that's a very vague concept or a very vague statement. But what it means is that you always feel like you know what you're doing, and you know what you're supposed to do next, and you have decisions to make that have interesting trade-offs that result in different outcomes, that result in different scores, and each gameplay is unique, and each challenge is just slightly frustrating, but not so frustrating that you give up. All those factors enter into what we would call good gameplay, and that's the second thing that you need. After that, you need visuals, and you'll notice I realize I'm talking to an art community here, but if the game isn't fun, it doesn't matter how pretty it is, nobody's going to want to play it. There have been a number of examples over the years of really pretty games that were just not worth it because they were awful, and there was no experience there. It's like a movie that, you know, the filming can be great, but if the acting is bad, you're not going to want to watch it. And this is an important lesson for people to know, especially in the art community, because, but even in the programming community, it's tempting to say, well, you know, I'm just going to do all these great graphics, I'm going to do this world, and it's going to have orcs and goblins in it, and it's going to have dark chasms that are populated with evil critters, and there's going to be torches on the walls, and the torchlight's going to look really cool, and so forth. And that's important, and that's part of the mood of the game. But if it isn't fundamentally playable, you're nowhere. And so I encourage people to think first about, well, what is it you're doing, and have a specific, simple mechanic in the game, one thing that's really fun. And if that thing is really fun, then you're golden. And the way I explain that, for example, is we did a Star Trek game a number of years ago. And what we discovered was, as soon as we got it that you could take that little USS Enterprise and bank it to the left and bank it to the right, and you'd see the stars moving in the foreground or from the background to the foreground and zooming by you, it felt so cool that by itself was fun. And once we had that was a play mechanic that was key to the game, and that hook built everything else built around that. Very similar to, you know, a lot of people are familiar with Angry Birds. It's a simple little game, but you know what? That dumb little mechanic of chucking a bird at a pile of stuff and watching it crumble is a lot of fun. Other things that are needed, sound effects. I already talked about challenge really up above. That's part of gameplay, but the challenge is, you know, something that makes you want to go and start doing it. And the last thing is competition, challenge against other people. You really want to be going against other people. What I'm showing you now is something which is a perfect example of this that I like to use as an example when I'm having this kind of talk. This is a game called the Game of Trade-Offs that we did for the U.S. Navy, Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, about last year. This doesn't look very exciting, does it? This is an Excel spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, this is literally an Excel spreadsheet. My point is that this is the prototype of the game, and this is the game as it actually shipped. But this prototype here, we put that in front of a bunch of people in this class about this particular game teaches how to deal with terrorists and societal breakdown and stuff like that, how to manage a society where there is an element that is trying to tear down the government. And it's essentially a sophisticated board game, but it's done online. And so what we felt was that we wanted to make sure that this was a good, playable, fun game, that the balance was right, that it was intriguing to play, that people would understand what they were doing and they would be excited about doing it. And so one player is the state and the other is the terrorist, and each one is trying to meet their goals. Terrorists are trying to destabilize the government is trying to control the terrorists. We sat down half dozen people in a room at the Naval Postgraduate School for 2 hours and said, here, play this game. See if, you be the state, the other person, you be the terrorist. Go ahead and see if you can win. And we had to pry them away from this spreadsheet after 2 hours. And that was the key turning point for us in the project. Once we walked out of that room, we said, guys, this is going to work. And everybody nodded their heads and said, this is totally going to work. And so then we made a pretty version of it, which has the same features. This is actually identical to that spreadsheet you just saw. The play is no different at all, but now it's really pretty, and you've got these nice scores up at the front, and you've got up and down arrows indicating that things are changing. We've got a nice user interface for making selections of what level you want to be at, and so forth. There's all these different things that we did to make the game look good as well as play well. But fundamentally, it's the same game. And that was the principle that we used in designing such a thing, and we always try to do when possible in a game. So anyway, just wanted to make you aware of that.
What was that? What was that called? That game, Bill?
It was called Balance of Terror. It is not commercially available, and you aren't allowed to see it.
Okay.
It's available. It's basically what we did was we did this for the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, which is essentially a university. I mean, it's located on a Navy base and it's run by the Navy, but in fact it's a university. And they have a lot of folks from out of the United States who come to our country, and they're running a country where there's an active insurrection in process. And this class teaches them appropriate and effective techniques for how to deal with that. In other words, don't just go off and slaughter people. That doesn't work. Instead, here are some techniques that you can use. Find out what the terrorists are doing, why they're getting support from the population. Maybe the population's really unhappy with your police policies, or with lack of jobs, or with this or that or the other thing. And you can explore. You can basically open up the possibility and say, well, I wonder what would happen if I really cracked down. And then you watch what the terrorists do, and you say, that's interesting. And then you discuss it in class. There are no right or wrong answers in this game. The point is that it gives a realistic set of responses to your activities, and so you can try out various scenarios. You can say, I wonder what it would be like if I did this, or I wonder, well, this time I'm not going to turn into a police state. This time I'm going to negotiate with the other guys and maybe give them a few of the things they want. Let's see how that works. And you're not playing against an artificial intelligence, you're playing against another human. And so both of these humans are trying to optimize their strategy and react to what the other person is doing. So it's fairly deep. And anyway, it's proven very effective. So that's what that is. Let's talk for a few minutes about what people do in game companies. So think for a moment of what kind of roles you imagine people are doing in any of the big game development companies around. And then what we'll do, so I'll bring up a list of the kind of things that people do. I completely believe that a lot of the folks who are especially at the high school level, but also at the college level, it happens too, think that being in a game company is fun 24 hours a day. It's like, wow, we're playing games all day long. Woo! This is the greatest career in the universe. It's a lot of hard work, and it isn't just fun. And there can be politics, and there can be it's just like any other job. So I want to help you understand, and help them understand, preferably, that there are many complicated facets to this. And it's the same thing as saying, well, I want to work at Disneyland because they just design rides all day and it's great. Well, no. So anyway, a couple of the roles, I'll just go over these roles real quick so you can have some idea of the kind of things. You got game designers, so people who design, well, what is this thing that we're doing? We've got this guy that's a fighter. Well, what numerical characteristics define him as a fighter? How many different kinds of fighters do we have? Do we have male and female fighters? Can they fight against each other? All these millions and millions of questions about designing. This is the equivalent in the film business of the writer. You're basically creating the world and deciding how it affects how everything is affected. The difference is that in game design, not only are you creating a world, but you're also creating a whole bunch of rules for that world. So you're saying that, okay, swords are weapons, and swords have do this much damage in this way, but if you roll the dice and you come up with this, then they will do this other thing, and then swords are ranked on a number from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20, and a 20 is better than a 10, and you have to define all that stuff, because if you don't really have a game. Okay, so we do that. Obviously, there's artwork, and I won't go into that in too much detail because everybody on this call already knows. You got 2D art, you got 3D art, you got concept art, among other things. And within animation, you've got half a dozen different disciplines ranging from texturing and all that kind of stuff up through animation. So you got all that. Then you've got audio. Audio is often underemphasized. It's the redheaded stepchild, the one that gets kicked into the corner at the end of the project. Oh my God, we need audio. These days it's not quite as bad as it used to be, but it's still the case that people don't always give audio as much of the due as it should. Then there's programming.
Bill?
Yes.
This is Ken. I had a quick question on the design.
Sure.
Is there software or kind of like I would imagine it's kind of almost like a flow chart process, like figuring out, okay, if you do this, these are the 10 different, things that could possibly happen. Is there certain software that makes that easier to, just to start conceptualizing, all these parameters, or is it all done on pencil and paper and Post-it notes, or any thoughts on that?
It varies widely. There is no one software package. It's not like, say, the 3D graphics world where you got Max and Maya, for example, and you're going to use this package, and everybody uses one of these or similar packages to do their work because that's just the language that's spoken in that particular discipline. Design is much broader and more open-ended and more creative, and usually there are certain tools that one uses, but every designer is different and every design process is different. So some people will go into Excel and write elaborate spreadsheets for example, if you're doing, a lot of the games we've done have been strategy games, and so we'll spend a lot of time saying, okay, the Spaceship Enterprise has 2 phasers forward and 2 phasers rear, and it has a photon tubes here and there, and each photon tube has this many torpedoes, and you end up with these giant charts. That's one way to do it if you've got a strategy game. If you've got an action game, you have a tendency to focus a lot more on other things. Let's say it's a first-person shooter game. You're focusing, it's sort of obvious what you're doing. You're running around using weaponry that does stuff to other guys, and so the biggest issue is, okay, does it fire bullets? Does it fire laser beams? Does it fire grenades? All these kind of things. So you spend a lot of time designing your play mechanics that way, so you know kind of what's going on in the game. It's a world, and guys run around and do stuff. But then you got to define, well, what does do stuff mean, and what does the world mean, and what So in that case, you actually spend a lot of time on paper drawing out maps. And you can draw these maps electronically, but usually the first drafts of that kind of stuff, because it's a creative process and there's no particular reason to use one technical tool over another, just take a big piece of paper and draw it and say, well, we want some stuff over here, and then we want a forest over there, and then we want to route you through this, and it's going to kind of feel like this. Okay, now let's go ahead and, we all agree that that's good. Okay, great. Let's jump into, Unreal Editor or Max or Maya or whatever tool we've chosen to represent our worlds, and actually do a mock-up of it. And then, then it becomes a lot like film. Let's do a previs. Okay, so let's do a crappy-looking world that's just got blocks for buildings, and run through it and see if everything feels like it's the right size. Anyway, so there's a lot of stuff that gets done with that.
Great, that helps. Thank you.
Okay, programming, obviously, giant set of tasks. There are lots of programming languages. All the different languages have pluses and minuses. Some of them are better for particular tasks than others. So we often find, depending on what kind of game you're building and what your audience is, you get very different set of languages that are used. And that's part of the decisions that I make. I'm a technical guy, so I spend all my time thinking about, well, okay, are we going to write it in C# or PHP or JavaScript or blah, 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 or C++, and there's a million different languages and a million different choices. Programming does get kind of religious, so you definitely have some people who say, well, this is the best language, period. And other people say, well, you're an idiot. The other one is the better language. At your level especially, just ignore all that crap. There is no one best universal fantastic language that everybody needs to learn, that everything bows to. If there is such a language, the closest one would be C++, because it basically can do anything and is very powerful, and most other languages have features that are derived from it indirectly or directly in terms of the way they express their ideas and the way they structure their information. And so those who tend to know C++ are well suited to picking up other things. But that's not a universal truth, and that's not the only way to work it. And so I hesitate to say, one language is better than the other. It's more a matter of, well, for your particular application, this one has these advantages, that kind of stuff. But programming is very much an artistic thing, and you think it's a technical skill, but really it's a combination of a technical and creative skill, because with programming you have to translate the very fuzzy, vague expectations and statements of human beings into very precise and absolutely immutable language, which will do exactly what you say and not what you don't say, at least in theory, and which is not subject to intuition or common sense at all. And by that I mean, you would think that you build a world and you write some programs that say, hey, this character is going to walk along this surface. Well, unless you tell it so, there's no particular reason why the software will think that that surface is something that will support the walking of the character via gravity, and that there is this concept called gravity, that if the person steps off of the surface, then they will fall until they hit another surface. Little things like that, or for that matter, that there's no particular reason why the software thinks the sky is blue. I mean, we think the sky is blue. The reasons why it is actually blue are very complicated, but humans just instinctively know, oh, it's daytime. Well, if there's no clouds, the sky's going to be blue because it's daytime. The computer doesn't know that and can't know that, and so there's a lot of interesting conversations that one has from time to time in the technology field, going back and forth with one another about expectations, and what the computer can know and what the computer can't know. So the other things that are there, project management and quality assurance. It's very important to test things. So with that in mind, Patricia would like to move fairly quickly to talking about artwork. Patricia, if it's okay, I'd like to spend just a couple more minutes showing a couple of flowcharts, and then I'll bail.
Okay.
So I wanted to give you guys an idea. This is often how you draw things. We're not going to talk about this in detail. I'd be delighted if people want to go over this stuff in more detail. What we're doing today is we're dipping our toe in the water. So I'm showing you a bunch of stuff, and then we're going to be guided by our intuition of what you guys want, but also what you guys feel you want. And so we'd love your feedback on this. We're just trying to dip our toe in the water and show you a little bit about the thought processes that goes into making a game. So here's an example of, okay, you have a screen, you click a button, then if you've already been playing the game, it takes you to screen 2, which is back to playing the game, and if the game is over, then it takes you to screen 3, which says here's the summary of the game. Stuff like that. This is how we draw it. So just be aware that that's what things look like. And then this is another example of you can draw user interfaces where you have this thing called main menu, and if you click the Monster Whack button, it'll take you into the Monster Whack game, and when you're done, it goes to game over. We use user interface flow diagrams like this to help explain to everybody on the team, okay, this is how it's going to work. This is what's going to be connected to what. This is what the experience is going to be like. It's like a script for a movie, but it's a lot more complicated than a script because there's branching involved. Um, and this is the last picture here this is what game logic typically looks like, where we often draw this out and say, the monster appears, and if the player clicks, and if it hit him, you get a score, and if nope, then nothing happens. Stuff like that. So I'll be happy to talk more about this later if it's appropriate. It isn't something that we're expecting you to be intimately familiar with because it's not really your primary mission. I just want you to be aware of the existence of these kinds of things and these kinds of concepts and these kinds of ways of thinking, so that it's easier for you to have the conversation with the kids and explain what's going on. So with that, Patricia, it is all yours. I will turn off the screen sharing. Let me get back
Actually,
to...
that's my job. I'm the only one who can do that.
Well, there's a button here that says stop sharing.
Oh, I think I'm on now.
Oh, that's your button, yes.
Can you see me? Because I can't.
Can
you hear me?
No, I can't see you at the moment.
I can hear you, but I can't see you either.
Okay, that's strange, but you know what? All I want to do is show you a screen, so let's try to proceed from there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on screen sharing. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Patricia. Actually, Patricia, you just turned off your screen sharing.
Oh,
interesting. Now see your face.
Okay, so let's try it again.
At least that's what it said.
Right, yeah.
And I see your face.
Okay, great. How about now? Can you see my screen? Let's see. Let's go into... All right, so...
Awesome.
All right. So I'm actually going to just start with a briefing, just as from an artist technical. I guess I'm now considered a technical artist, but from an artist's perspective, Game Salad is hard. Okay, I've spent like 2 full weeks learning it. However, it makes it possible. So without something like Game Salad, it would be simply impossible for me to create a game. So even though Game Salad is not easy, it makes it easy, relatively speaking. So for that, I'm grateful. Now, I hope most of you are working using Game Salad on a Macintosh, because you've got all of the tutorials almost are all for Macintosh, and the two software packages, Game Salad for Windows and Game Salad. There's someone that doesn't have their phone, their mic muted. If you'd mind muting it, that would be great. I hear some shuffling. So they're very different, and the tutorials you see are going to be for a Mac. I did manage to hobble my way through because I'm on Windows, and with much struggle, I did figure out enough to create a game. So I wanted to show you, I actually started with a kit, which you would think, oh, well, that's a cakewalk. So a kit is something I bought for $5, and it gave me sort of a head start on creating a game that was a certain theme. You'd think it would be a cakewalk if you had started with a kit. It wasn't. But it did allow me to learn a lot and get a kind of a head start. So let me just kind of, this is it right here. I've got all my art assets. And like I said, I spent like 2 weeks, and this was just making the game. Not a little bit of the art, but mostly just learning how to use Game Salad. Again, if your mic is not muted, I'd kindly suggest if you could mute your mic, because I can hear your shuffling. Okay, so the object of this game is I'm using the Ceramic Studio as a platform for learning Game Salad, and I created these control keys where I can move around the environment through the arrow keys, and it naturally moves to left or right on its own. And then you're supposed to identify certain activities, this list here, by clicking on the things like, okay, you can paint pottery, so you click on that and you get a point. There's also little... Oh, that one isn't working. I'm going to figure out what to do with him right now. He's just kind of doing a loop. Oh, I ran out of time. So now I can play again. But anyway, I'll just go ahead and click on the thing. Let's see, that's maybe a class or camp. That's throwing on the potter's wheel. And There we go. Yay! Okay, so that's what I was able to do with my little game. And I was pretty excited about that. Okay, so what I wanted to go over is just the very bare basics that our teachers would want to be familiar with in instructing their students how to prepare their art for Game Salad. So this is a Photoshop file, and in here I've got the various levels. This is my intro page for the game. But what I wanted to show you is two things. One is, how do you create a graphic that has a transparent background so that if you go over here to the media, which Bill will go over, and you look at, let's say, this pinch pot. Okay, let me just actually start a new scene here that's blank, and I can go over and I can bring over a graphic like this or something, and you see that there's no background. There's no background back here. Okay, so I'm going to go back in here, and here's my graphic, and it has a solid white background. It's not transparent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete the background. Okay, and the thing with PNG 24s, PNG, the 24 part references that it has an alpha channel. And if you're familiar with working with TIFFs or Targas, they would have their alpha channel showing over here in the channels. PNGs that have alpha channels do not have that. So for me, it was it was very new. But anyway, so the way that I can know that it actually does not have a background, that if I open up a file and if I want to see if there's in fact a solid background or not, what I can do is I can hold let's see here, go in here. Actually, I have to make sure that it isn't a locked background. And if I hold the control key and I click, then that means that it's solid because it's not recognizing that there's a transparent field there. I hope you're on because it's quite quiet back there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create another layer here of it. I'll go ahead and make this background just to make it nothing there. And I'm going to go ahead and select the black just to make sure that there isn't anything there. And I'll go ahead and delete it. Now, if you're actually getting rid of a background like that, you might actually want to bring the pixels in a little bit so that there isn't any little white or black around it. But in order to keep this demo short, I'll just go ahead and hit delete. Okay, so now if I'm in this file and I hold the control key over the layer here and I click, you see it recognizes, it will actually select what isn't there, or what is there, and so I know that I'm ready to go. So now I can make any changes I want with this file, which you being art teachers, I'm sure you know how to work the basics of Photoshop. Just for the sake of demonstration, I'll just go ahead and give it a hue change or something. Okay. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and save this out. Now, you always want to save it for web. It makes your file much smaller. Go ahead and hit save, and that's all I need to do. Save it in the right place. Okay, the next thing is let me just actually check in. Are you all there? Nod your head if you can still hear me.
I'm here.
Okay, very good. Okay, so any questions about that? Probably not. Okay.
I usually just get rid of that white layer underneath your graphic, and that
Yes.
way, when you get rid of the background, it's the checkerboard pattern.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the easiest way to tell is you just turn off that background thing, and all of a sudden you see the checkerboard. It's like, oh, well, obviously there's alpha in this thing.
Okay, great. Okay, so I saved that out, and the next thing is, well, let's see here. Let me just go ahead and make sure I save it so I know where it is. I was being a little lax about where it was saved. Okay, the next thing is we have a little graphic here, and we're going to make an animation out of it. Okay, so first of all, let me go ahead and get rid of the background. Personally, I can't stand that checkerboard background. It drives me crazy, so that's why I don't use it. But, you know, go for it if that works for you. That's why it's there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the background. And again, but if you see any kind of white halo around there, you can always select it, and you can go ahead and expand your selection by 1 pixel, and then just go ahead and hit delete, and that should take care of the white around there. All right, so then if your timeline isn't already up, you can go to the Windows and bring up your timeline right here. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these 2 frames. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a couple new frames. Okay, actually, I want to go ahead and clone, and then I want to go ahead and clone this a couple times. Whoops. Okay, so for the first one here, I'm going to go to frame 1, and I'm going to do something like, I'll go ahead and shrink it. And I'm going to shrink it from the middle, scale it from the middle by holding the Alt and the Shift, and that shrinks it from the middle. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the next frame over, and I'm going to go to layer 2, and I'll, let's say, give it a different color or something. And yeah, I'll make the outside a different color too. That will be fun. Whoops. There we go.
There you go.
Oh, but it went to every one. That was weird. Huh, that's weird how it went to every one there.
Well, it's just showing through.
Oh, it's showing through. That's right. Okay. And I'm also going to go ahead and turn it. Okay, and let's go ahead and turn off that bottom layer. On the first layer here, let's also turn off the other layers. And then in this one, we got layer, and then we'll go on the third layer here. We'll turn that off, and we'll do something like, you know, we'll scale it. Oh, I don't want it to go out of the frame, though. Don't want to do that. And we'll make the middle white or something. Okay, now let's check out our little animation here. Okay, wonderful. Woo. Okay, let's make this
You lost
somewhat...
your green on the second frame.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Huh. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so the frame 1 is, you can see the layer of layer 1, and then frame 2 is the second layer, and then frame 3 is the third, and so we'll just kind of cycle through those. Okay, now right now it's so the thing is as far as timing goes, it's you can actually we'll just keep it simple. There's so much more you can do here, but we'll just keep it like that. And now the question is, how do you get this out and bring it into Game Salad? So what you do is you go to Export. Now this is in the handout that I have that is on the Game Salad site, which I will again give you send you an email with the name of that file. And we're going to go ahead and render the video. You can also bring in movies. So you can bring in a full-on movie, you can bring it into, which I have done with my files from the 3D program, and then you can convert them into a frame animation, and then here you can eliminate, you can actually reduce the frames, which is often necessary when it comes as a movie format. Okay, so you want to set it to PNG, and you're you kind of, in the handout I have, it actually gives a picture of this and how you can set it up. It's telling me the dimensions that it already is. And then the frame rate, we'll just keep it like that, and it's all frames, and we'll say we'll sort of, we'll have an alpha channel that will be matted to black. And I guess, let's see, I'll just have it unmatted actually. And then it's going to be its name. Let's say we'll keep it as Blast. I'm going to put a little underscore after that, and I'm going to make sure that it saves in the place I want it to. Let's see, where do we have it here? Oh my goodness. Okay, actually, Bill, yeah, you're not going to have these anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save it.
That's okay. This
Okay.
is an example.
Okay, so let's see, let's go ahead and put it in my, just save it right here. And you render it out. And that's how you do it. And then the next stage is what Bill is going to demonstrate, which is how do you bring your graphics into GameSalad. First, I guess you'll start out with a brief overview of how GameSalad maybe differs from how you create games through basic coding, and then you know, how you bring in your graphics. So let me go back over here, release the screen.
Okay.
Hello. Okay, you ready, Bill?
Hi there. Yeah, you bet. I am now going back into sharing mode. You are screen sharing, it says. Okay, and that is Google. I'm sorry, this is GameSalad. Okay, so I assume everybody can see this. I'm going to make it nice and big so it covers most of the screen. Does that look good?
Yep, that seems good.
Great. Okay. When GameSalad starts up, it looks like this. Go ahead, Kent.
Oh, quick question. So let's see. What Patricia just went through was how to basically make a little GIF like a little GIF animation in Photoshop. Is that right?
No, if I can just, no, thank you for mentioning that. Let me just answer that.
Yeah.
No. GameSalad only accepts PNGs and JPEGs. Okay. It does not accept GIFs. And so you need to save them as sequenced files. Now, if it doesn't have a transparent field, you could actually save it as a JPEG. But PNG has a better image quality, and I recommend PNG. So you've got PNG, and in Photoshop, it doesn't tell you that it's saving it as a PNG 24, but if you save it saved through web, and you click on the transparent button that is visible when you're in the Save for Web dialog, then it automatically saves it as a PNG 24. Yeah, and let's see what else. Oh, the cool thing is that you can also import in an animated GIF, and then you can save it back out as a sequenced PNG series. So let's say that you wanted to just experiment and play with your kids with how to do things. You could actually find any animated GIF on the internet. You could import it, you could open it into Photoshop and convert it to a PNG 24 and then bring it into GameSalad.
Okay, so basically you're making an image sequence out of that animation, and then that's what you import into GameSalad.
That is correct.
The image sequence. Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me go ahead and launch right in, and you know we're in an interesting point, and just following up briefly on what Patricia and Kent were just talking about. Kent, from your standpoint, we're at an intersection now of art and technology, is this concept of graphics with alpha channel and stuff like that, and 24 bits versus 8-bit pings and stuff like that, is that stuff that is going to be relatively common knowledge around among the students that you have, or is that something that's exotic?
I'm pretty familiar with it, just from doing things in the classroom. So it wouldn't take that much to teach the students, but
Great.
basically all my I would say 75% of my animation students have never used Photoshop before, but we do have Photoshop on all the computers, so it's
Okay.
usually typically it's their very first high school art class.
Okay, that's what I'd expect. Okay, good. That it helps me to calibrate my expectations of what I'm going to talk about. So Game Salad is, let me just start by saying that it's a very useful toolkit for learning how to build a game. It is not what I would call the greatest game editing and management toolkit in the universe. It is not perfect, but it does a lot of neato things, and it does them in an easy way that allow you to get into it without knowing a lot of super technological stuff, and that's why it's fun. It allows you to spend most of the time on the logic and the visuals and the interactions of the game, and not on what would traditionally be called writing code. And code writing is a wonderful skill, and it's a great thing to have, but there is a non-trivial segment of the population that it's just not their thing. And in the same way that I can't draw worth beans, there are other people who can't program, and that's okay. And so this is a tool that's really a great intro, because you don't need to be able to speak this weird foreign language of C or C# or whatever in order to make a game that's a simple little game that's really cute and really fun. And so it opens the door to regular human beings, as opposed to geeks, to doing fun stuff and to doing games. But just so you know, it is intimidating, and it's a little bit big, and there's a zillion buttons on the screen. Honestly, it's a lot like looking at Photoshop for the first time. And I happen to, even though I'm not an artist, and I will never claim to be an artist, I actually use Photoshop rather a lot in my work, and GIMP, because we do a lot of graphics manipulation on stuff and creating of simple assets. And so I get that. But there's a lot of stuff in Photoshop, and even more now in the newer versions than the one I've usually used. This is the same way. So don't be surprised. And my reason for bringing this up is just like the first time you looked at Photoshop, says, holy crud, what is all this stuff? It's going to feel a little bit the same way with this as well. Don't be alarmed. That's normal. So what happens is you create a new game in Game Salad. I'm going to show you the process, and then we're going to let you play around with it for a little while, and then answer some questions. So the first thing you do when you press that button, let me show you the button. This button here up to the left-hand corner says New Blank Project. You click that button, and you get a dialog box that looks like this. It says, what's the project info? And you type in something, My Cool Game. I prefer to work in iPad size, because iPad size is a lot easier to deal with. And so guess what? I just
And Bill, I can.
Empty template. Go ahead, Patricia.
Oh, you can change those parameters later too.
Right. However,
If you want later.
if you've already built all your artwork for iPad and now you want to put it on iPhone, it's going to shrink the artwork down. And if you're going the other direction, it's going to be a bigger problem, because the other technical concept that people want to be able to understand is resolution. And if you take a crappy looking 16 by 16 image and you try to move that up to 64 by 64, it's going to look like crap. Anyway, so Game Salad has this concept of scenes, and each scene, well, it's just like the scene in a script. So what we can do is we can take a scene, we can open up that scene, and then we can start putting stuff into it. And this is where this program is really fun and easy to use, because it allows you to assemble stuff very quickly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of the kind of stuff that you can do with just a few steps today, And then ultimately, as Patricia said earlier, but to remind you, what we're going to do is we're going to send you off to play around with this tutorial that she found on the internet that is just great. And it allows you to make this monster whack game, which is a simple yet fun game. It's got a play mechanic. It's relatively trivial, but it is kind of entertaining for a while anyway. And more importantly, it's something that you can actually build in this tool. You can make the whole thing. It really works. What we're going to do today is do a subset of that.
Bill,
Yes.
could you try setting the setting for taking over the whole screen? I think we might be able to see it better.
I did. That's what I did. Is there something wrong?
You did? Okay, I just want to make sure. Well, it's just it's on my screen I'm seeing like the chat and other things, and I didn't know if there was a setting that you could set that would make the screen bigger. I just was checking.
No. I'm showing my entire screen.
Got it.
So that's about all I can do. I can make this image a little bit bigger on my screen. That's about all I can do. What we're going to do is we made some example artwork. I'm going to do this completely trivial set of artwork. What I did here is I clicked this little plus button in the very lower left-hand corner. First off, I clicked on this thing that says images. So we've got this thing called the library, and that's all the stuff you get to play with in your game. So you're collecting it all in one place. It's a convenient place to drop it all and name it all so you can work with it as raw assets. And so what this program allows you to do is to say, okay, I've got a couple of files or a couple of images that I've created. You notice that they're all ping files. I can say open those, and then voila, I've got those images in my system. But that's raw material. That is the graphics that are sitting as printouts. Imagine them as printouts sitting as sheets of paper on your table in your work room. They're just on your table. You aren't doing anything with them. They're just examples of something you might try to use. Now you want to actually make a thing. So what we've got here is a scene, as I said before. This is your initial scene in the game, and we're not going to get fancy. The demo that you'll be walked through will actually show you several scenes and how to string them together. But for the purposes of this, that's a later thing you need to learn. Right now, it's just focus on let's get something on the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, I want to mess around with the green cheese moon. I made this this picture yesterday in GIMP. I'm going to drag this up into my section of actors. So you now see I've got a green cheese moon down here in the library, but now I've got another thing called green cheese moon up here. This is an actor in my script or in my game. And so this is something that I can put onto the stage. Now I've taken that graphic and said essentially I want to use that graphic. Now I can drag it. You see what I'm doing? I'm dragging it over here onto the screen, and it will be whatever size it is. Now this happens to be a big graphic. We already talked about resolution. Obviously it's important to have a graphic that is big enough, because if you're going to stretch it to make it fit, you want to make sure you got enough pixels that it's going to look good. This one I know is an iPad screen size. It's 1024 by 768. So it's got plenty of pixels. You notice it's nice and sharp. I added an extra star into it just for fun. You know, I changed it from blue to green. The game actually has a green one, a blue one, but I made it green because I wanted to make a green cheese moon just to be different. But you notice how easy that was. Look, I've got a background now. You know, before I didn't have a background. Now I've got a moon. Then what I can do is I can say, well, I want a character on this. I want a monster. So I'm going to make a monster and call this guy Monster 1. Monster 1. Okay, well, I apparently don't know how to spell. Monster 1. Okay, so now I've got this guy, and you'll notice I've named him something different than his graphic. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that or right with that. But if I had several of them, that's what I'd want to do. Now I'm going to put this monster on one of the little holes in the moon. And I decided I want him to be shrunken down a bit, so I'll shift drag him, and look at that. There we go. I got a monster that's now on my screen. And I'll show you a couple other things we can do in a moment. If you want to do an animation, you can actually create a new guy up here. I'll show you how to create a simple animation by going here. This is another way to create an actor. First one, I just dragged a picture up there. The other one is I just said actor one. I said I'll call this explosion. And if I double click on this, it takes me to another editing thing. And this is the internals. This is the internals of this particular item. And I can say, aha, what I want to do is make him behave in a particular way. And this is where we get into this list of this big long list of all sorts of fancy stuff called behaviors. We don't need to look at all those right now. We're just going to focus on one, which is called animate. I'm going to drag that in here. And you notice it says, aha, here's an animate thing. And just as you would expect, it's nice and intuitive in this regard. Just as you expect, I can drag the 3 frames, and it says, oh, hey, guess what? I'll bet that's a sequence of images. Is it? Yes, it is. Hey, look at that. And now it recognizes the existence of those. I can change the frame rate. Those of you who use animation tools, this is all going to look tremendously familiar. I've got an object there, and let me make a placeholder image for this guy, which is a picture. That placeholder just helps us recognize who he is. Let's go back to the scene now. There's my scene. Now, one other thing I'm going to recommend to people do, this is something, I'm going to stop the demo for a moment and hit save. Those of you, most of you work with technical tools, live demo.game project. You are aware that software crashes. I don't trust software a whole lot. I save all the time. I recommend that you do it, and I recommend that you also tell your students for their own sanity and well-being that they save often, because Game Salad will occasionally die, just like any other product, just like Microsoft Word will die on you occasionally. And so don't take any risks. Make sure you save periodically. All right, that little lesson aside, let's go back and put an explosion down here on the moon. Now, right now, I have just this thing that looks like a graphic that's just sitting there. What we really want to do is see that do something. Well, did we really give it an animation? Game Salad gives us a little preview button up here. So at the top of the screen, you can see there's a green triangle that's a play button. In theory, we hit that, it's going to start playing that animation. And that's all we've done. We've done a single thing. So let's see if that really works. Hey, wow, guess what? We've just made the first part of our game. Now I'm going to stop that and go back to the scenes again. Oh, I just played it. Fine. Initial scene. Okay, now I'm going back to the scene editor. That is the very, very, very first bit of magic, and that's what we're going to ask you guys to do today, is literally this much stuff. So you've got a couple of characters, you've got a background, you got a thing on the foreground, and you got an animation. Now I'm going to show one other thing. But if we get this far, if you get this far today, you'll start to you put that first step forward into the world of playing with Game Salad. It's going to become a lot less scary. You'll be able to then take that demo together, or listen to that demo and ask us questions and so forth, and see where it goes. But this is something that if you were using a programming language, it would be a lot harder to get here. This is not something where you can do this in 2 minutes and blam, you've got an animation on the screen and so forth. I will caution you again, there are sometimes working with Game Salad that you sit there and do a lot of head scratching. Okay, I did this thing. I thought I did it right. It's not working. I don't know if I would call that a feature of Game Salad or a frustrating aspect of Game Salad, but I want you to recognize that it's not that you're a bad person or that you're dumb if you can't figure this out. I have spent a non-small amount of time myself scratching my head about, but I made it do this and it didn't work. So please don't lose perspective. This is like your first exercise in Photoshop and like your first learning of, say masks or paths or something in Photoshop. It can be a bit exasperating. Don't lose hope. Don't think that it's the end of the world. So what I'm going to do is one other thing, just to show you an example of the kind of stuff that can be done that's cool. I'm going to edit this monster and make him disappear. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, we're stepping into dangerous territory, Patricia, because now Bill is going off and doing stuff. So he's going to say, make a rule, and the rule says that actually, no, we don't need that, right? We want to do a timer. We want to say after 5 seconds, we are going to make this guy disappear. And the way you do that is you say, actually, no, let's do something fun. Let's change the size. I'm making this up as I go. This is fun. Let's just watch what happens if we make him change size. After 5 seconds, and let's make that 3 seconds so we can see it faster. I have no idea what this is going to do, by the way. So we're all going to experiment with this together. But this is part of the fun of doing these tools, is you just sort of jump in and go. Yeah, it worked. Look at that. And it never stops because I didn't tell it to stop. But, oh, that was totally cool. That's what I wanted it to do. Oh, that's fun. Okay, so, let's go back to that for a second, and I'll explain more about these things. What ends up happening is you get all these little blocks, and you can say, create a block that does this certain thing. And then you create another block inside of that block that says, okay, let's have another timer that says after, this number of seconds do something else. And you can chain these together, and you can see that these will get nested. And you'll see this big tower of 50 different things in here after a while. And this is where GameSolid has its limit. There's only so much you can do. You're eventually going to realize that this is why programming languages exist, because you can express things in more formal terms that are more compact, so that when you get a giant complicated behavior, like the behavior of a particular fighter in a World of Warcraft game or something like that, which can run to hundreds of pages worth of code, structurally it's doing the same thing, but you wouldn't want to write code like this when it gets really big, because it would be terrible. Now what I'm going to do is change the attribute. So I'm going to say monster1, his image. Actually, let's see. We want to change. Yeah, his us to. Okay, we're going to change his image. Wait a minute.
How about just change position?
Oh, okay. Let's do that. Good idea. Sure. Position X 2. And this is where it gets kind of fun. Watch what we can do here. We can say that position is monster1 position X
Like maybe
plus 1.
Okay.
10. Okay. So, or let's say plus 50, so it's really obvious. This is going to be crazy. I mean, obviously, we're just goofing around here. But what should happen now is we should be able to see it's going to change size and go zoom, and then 2 more seconds it's going to jump to the right. At least that's what I'm thinking it's going to do. 1, 2, go. 1, 2, jump. See it jumped?
Yep.
It jumped. It did exactly what we wanted. So I'm not going to go into any more details right now about this because I'd rather get people to actually play around with the tool.
Actually,
And
Bill, if I can insert,
please do.
there's something I want to go over where we are actually close. We're not going to have time for that, but what I do want to do is I want to leave the teachers with, I want to go over the handouts that I gave them so that they sort of recap what we went over.
Okay.
And
well,
plus the homework.
I mean, we may hang out. I'm willing to hang out after this
Absolutely.
presentation. But you're right. I mean, that's the key. So let me go ahead and get back to the software so I can turn off my screen sharing. Okay. In theory, I'm not sharing. Is that correct now? You're not.
You're not. You're.
Now you're seeing me.
Are you handing over the mic to me, so to speak?
I'm handing the mic to you. That is correct.
Okay, very good. Okay, so what I wanted to go over is, first of all, something I did not make clear that can really be a stickler inside Photoshop. Whoops. Let me go ahead and take over the screen. Okay, so one thing I did not, I actually saved this wrong, and what happened is when I saved this out, it saved it with a solid background, and this is a very easy mistake to do.
You're right. Yes.
Yeah. So what I did here is I did not uncheck the bottom layer, and that's sort of like, see, the layers themselves have a transparent field. However, because this bottom layer was on, it saved it out as a solid background. Okay.
Yeah.
So I unchecked that, and but I want to tell you that it's all actually listed in the handout. So let me show you the handouts that I placed for you on the Big Tent site. Now, I actually put them on the Big Tent site because there is a place to put those, but also I want to make sure that all your teachers who we're hoping will be facilitators for the students are on that site, because there's someone who's shuffling about. Maybe you could mute your mic. Okay. So I want to make sure that you're on the Big Tent site so that you can oversee your students' participation and get familiar with the site yourself. But these are the files that I placed on here. So let me just go over them with you briefly. Okay. First of all, I have something called animation basics for games. So on this little handout, I kind of go over what is a sequence. I'm assuming that if you're not, in this, field, you may not even know what that is. So we just go over a sequence is a series of images that are saved in sequential order that create an animation inside of GameSalad. In fact, they don't even have to be in sequential order. Any images can be made an animation inside of GameSalad, but it certainly makes them easier when they're sequences. Second of all, tools for making animated sequences, that's a big question. Like, how do you make animations? Well, you can use, of course I use, because that's what I teach, is the 3D program. I don't expect you to be using that. Many of you are already teaching hand-drawn animation, so you can simply use those methods and then save out those separate images into sequences, and you can bring them into. For goodness sakes, you could use claymation, you could use, let's see, anything. But you can also, I can't believe I didn't put Photoshop there, but you can also use Photoshop, of course. Now, one thing that is in question is like, well, how many frames should you have for sequences? Like, let's say that you have a character that is running and walking and fighting or whatever he's doing. So I wrote that down here. It's pretty basic. So a typical character would have an idle, which is basically, so, he's not moving, but he's moving. So that's called an idle. You've got to run, you've got to walk. Let's say you have a fall down and a get up. You could have many others. You could have be, fighting or hammering or whatever they might be doing. And you never want to exceed 30 frames. That's a max. And it all actually also depends on what size of the image it is. I mean, if you're talking about an image that is, you actually probably should have put the typical size, but the typical size, maybe Bill would like to mention that, and I'll put this on a handout, but let's say a ballpark figure is maybe 100 by 100 pixels, or
That's a lot of frames, Patricia.
Well, I actually went online. I mean, I went online and I researched this, and I was told that you never want to exceed that many. Yeah, it is
That's
a lot of
correct.
frames. Um,
Yeah, I mean, look, going back to the old days, a walk animation could be as few as 5 frames,
okay,
and more is better, obviously. I mean, but honestly, if you've got 8 frames in any given direction, anything more than that, if you got a little character that's like a Mario from, Super Mario kind of guy, 8 frames is more than enough because you're going to only see his legs moving a few pixels on each of those frames, and unless he's moving at 90 miles an hour, you don't really need any more frames than that. Now, this is just
okay,
my personal opinion, but coming from having done a lot of old
I agree with
school
you.
arcade style games, that's all you need. Now, fall down animation is like 2 or 3 frames minimum. You can get
Right,
fancy if you want, but it's really this is a matter of space. The reason you do this is not because you want to make lame art. It's because art is very, very big, and the last thing you want to do is clog up your game with a ton of art that's not as important as the other art. So you're
got it.
always trying to say, well, how many frames do I need to get the point across? And use the minimum number of frames that you need to get the frame across. And if the guy is falling and all they're doing is going thunk, 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 die, right? And they're going to disappear 2 seconds later and then they're going to restart, you probably don't need a whole boatload of frames. On
Got
the
it. I'll go ahead and change that on this handout, and we'll get
Right.
that to them.
On the other
Okay,
hand, if it's a game where they're flipping and flopping down and the gravity or the ragdoll physics or something like that is actually something that you want them to perceive as part of the game, well, then you need more frames. Anyway, that's the deal.
okay, very good. And I will update that, Bill.
No
And I
problem.
agree with you. I'll update that. So, okay, how do you make an animation in Photoshop and save it out as PNG files? Okay, there's printed in, there's printed instructions here. There is a video on this link right here that you can watch. And this is the screenshot of this. You want to make sure, basically follow these settings in this, and it should work for you as far as saving your PNG sequence. So that is the handout there. Then we have another one, which is called Making Art and Interactivity for Games. This is something I gathered together, which is dimensions for various platforms. You've got excellent beginner game salad guides. I'm sorry, game salad tutorials, basic character movement, side scroller. Additional cool things you may want to know how to do in game salad. And so there's some handy links right there. But really, if you Google just about anything you're looking for, you're likely to find some information. It's a beautiful thing about today. So let's see, that's the handouts. And then let's see, we've got in does I'm assuming that most people are on a Macintosh, but just so that you can see, this is the Windows version. And you have to bring in, it's quite different. You've got 3 tabs here. You've got, I'm sorry, up here, you've got the tabs, the media tab, and that is where you bring in your artwork. And we call those assets. You bring in your sounds and your images in here. Okay, and then once you have your artwork, you need to make an actor out of it before you can put it on the stage. Okay, so in Windows, you click on the actor icon, okay, and then you go ahead and you create an actor by hitting the plus. Okay, you can click on an actor and let's say you name it, whatever you're going to name it. Okay, and then let's say accept that, and then when you click on, then you have to click on the tab here, and this is your new actor you created. Then you go to the media tab and you can drag your actor onto, I'm sorry, drag your artwork onto the actor. Once it's created, then you go back to the actor tab and you can bring it onto the stage. Now it's going to be bigger because I created a smaller frame there. Okay, now as far as the animation goes, to recap that, okay, if I go to the actor and I'm going to just say blast. Okay, then there is my blast actor. I'm going to go to the media tab. I'm going to find my blast and here. Then to make an animation out of it, I have to click this little edit rules tab over here. It brings up this field right here. So you've got three basic things here. It's really important to note. Three different functions, aspects of the game salad. You've got the media, you've got the actors, and then you've got the behaviors. So I've got my blast actor up here. I'm going to go to the behaviors, and I'm going to find, and these are all these things, and this is what makes it, so simple, is that instead of writing this by scratch, you've got like shortcuts, so to speak. So, and again, believe me, it was not what I would call easy to learn, but it was possible for an artist like myself to figure it out over time, and a lot of determination. So I'm going to go ahead and get my animate behavior, and I'm going to click it right here. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to my media, and I'm going to select my my animation frames, and I'm going to drag them over here. Okay, I've now created my animation, and by default it's 10. So now I'm going to go back to my actors, and there's my blast, and now I can drag it onto the stage. Oh, and I must have saved the one with the black background. See, that's what you don't want to do. Let me go ahead and bring that over. But when I hit the play button, yay, you've got an animation. Okay, so that's how it's done. And that was actually the assignment that we wanted to give to you today, that we're giving to you. And that is for you to successfully create an image in Photoshop with a transparent background, as I have done here successfully with this. And I have to go back and fix this one. And then to go into Photoshop and to create your little quick animation with your transparent background. And if I was to go ahead and save for it, render to video, I'll keep. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and render that out. I'm replacing the files right here. If I go in back in here, it actually maybe it's some kind of weird. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these, just sort of review. And bring them in again. So those should now have a transparent background, let's hope. And they do, yay, okay. So the actor, Blast, has now lost its frames. So I'll go ahead and go through that again. I'll put one image here. It still has its behavior, so now I can just drag and drop these in here. Okay, and now I go back over here, and it's actually updated it like that. And now we've got, and we don't even know actually that this little moon has a transparent background unless we were to go in and change the background. But it is, because you can see that when I pull it over to the side, you see that it's transparent. So that is really what we wanted you to make sure that you understand as a teacher, an art teacher at the high school, that you could understand those two things. So what Bill and I have agreed to do is we will be available for you for for the next hour till 5. And so for you to go ahead and go through this, and then if you have any problems, we are going to stay online, and you can just go to kind of shout out, and we will be within we'll hear you, and we'll respond to your questions as needed. Okay, Bill, is there anything that you would like to add?
I think we covered it really well. The key points there were, in particular, that last point was that the software differs a lot between Windows and Mac. It is unfortunate. We're not happy about that, but that is the fact of the matter. So if you are on a PC and you're trying to use this, as Patricia has said, the online tutorials are not nearly as helpful as you would like them to be. That's really kind of
actually sad. They are pretty good. I have to say they're pretty good. It's still, this program is not easy for a non-programmer, but if you're on a Macintosh, you're gonna be much better off than if you're on a PC.
That's all. You can do it on both. So definitely like that idea. And yeah, what I'd like to do is I'd like to say that we want people to do two things. First off, just jump in and do these couple of things that we just did, because should be pretty quick if you get the hang of that. And then it's to actually watch that tutorial that we were talking about. Excuse me, I had a hiccup there. Watch that tutorial and build the Monster Whack game for real, because that is a very informative process, and that should be the homework assignment for the week, basically, is see if you can do that and see what happens. See if it works. See if you run into walls, because now is the time, while we're actively teaching this, now is the time to be asking us questions and saying, hey guys, I don't get it. I tried this and I'm just not understanding this concept. Let's talk about it together. Let's find out what it is that I'm not understanding so we can get it to work. That's it. For me, that's all we have to do. And at this point, I'd like to say, anybody who's in the chat, feel free to bring up questions. And Patricia, I don't know if the observers, I guess those who are observers right now are just pretty much stuck being observers, right?
Yeah,
is there
what I'm
another
going
way
to
they
do
can
is,
contact you?
yeah, I will, I'm going to send an email to everybody, and I'm going to recap, give them the link to the homework assignment that they should be doing this week, and give them my phone number, and let them call me or text me if they have any problems. And like I said, Bill and I will be within earshot of this video cam, which we'll leave on for another hour if you have any questions, and if you just want to go through and make a PNG 24 and bring it into Game Salad and lay it on the background. And you should have gotten those two files, the blast and the moon, and that would be in the big tent, and you can go through those. What was I also going to say? That's it. Oh,
Hey,
next week. I'm sorry, next week. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the tutorial. We're going to look at what you all have done, and then just actually based on your feedback this week, we will sort of formulate the next week's class for an hour and a half based on your needs and questions.
Hey guys, I had one question. This is Kent Baker. I've been playing around with a couple kind of intro tutorials, on YouTube and stuff. I don't know if you can see the screen here.
It's not at all clear. It's like really pixelated. We can't see a darn. We can see that there are things that are highlightable, but it looks like it's written in Japanese.
Aha. So do you have me on full screen or?
Yes.
No, but I can try that.
Yeah. So click on
that.
that.
I can't read it either.
Right. So here's my question. Basically, within a project folder of Game Salad, there's these subfolders for actors, behaviors, images, etc. And when you're creating these visual assets, your images, just for organization's sake, you'd put those maybe in a folder, right? And then what I noticed as I was playing around with some of these intro tutorials is that I would create a Game Salad project file, and it would create your folder, and it would create all these subfolders, and then I would put my visuals inside this image folder, and then within that image folder, when I imported those into Game Salad, it made an additional copy of those.
Right. That's because you're not supposed to put things in there.
Okay. So what's a better way to do that?
Well, the better way to do it is to put it into a different folder. Okay. On the Mac version, those folders don't exist.
Okay.
Are you on a PC?
I am. And
okay.
Let me
explain. Because I am. Organization is really important, obviously, and I teach it big time in my class. And so I was like trying to create subfolders for the animations and all the stuff inside that folder, probably just like you were, Ken, only to discover that no matter where my images are on my computer, it will conveniently pull them from that location and copy them into that folder. And any images I have in subfolders, they will remove from the subfolders and stick them in the local image folder. So don't try to put any subfolders in that folder, and don't even bother saving your files in there, because it will automatically relocate them in that folder for you.
Okay, what I ended up doing on this other one, I don't know if you can see this, is I made a little folder for like image download while I was creating the images, and that way it's separate from the actual Game Salad image subfolder.
What I would normally do is I create a separate file called assets or something, a folder called assets, and you put all your assets inside of there. That's what I did for this thing. I had the Game Salad demo assets, and I threw all the pictures in there. And if I'd had pictures and sounds and so forth and animations, I would have put them in separate folders inside of there. Yes, because as what you're seeing is a very non-obvious and slightly frustrating side effect of the way they built Game Salad, which is that on the PC version, you have these exposed folders that are magical folders that they are handling for you, and that you're
Right.
not supposed to stick stuff in.
Okay.
That's the way it goes.
Right. I have that same kind of. They have the same sort of project organization in Toon Boom Studio. I've noticed.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So hey, I'm not going to be able to hang around too much longer, but I will definitely work on the tutorial this week and see what you think next week. One sort of just stepping back from the particulars of this, just a general question. To help market my animation class and, for example, a gaming project like this, is there a way to create some sort of visual gameplay and then make a QuickTime movie out of that, which then I could put, like put on a website or upload, or put on a display monitor or something, just to give prospective students an idea of, the student projects in this Game Salad software?
Oh,
I can
yeah,
tell
that
you
would
that
be
I
easy.
uploaded mine. I uploaded mine yesterday. You can upload it for free, and then it goes into the arcade, uh, what they call it, online on the Game Salad site. But be
Okay.
aware, can't you have Macs at school, correct?
No, all PCs.
Oh, really? Okay.
Uh,
Well, the problem with that is that there's some when you're uploading it onto their arcade, what it's doing is it's converting the programming into HTML5. And
okay.
apparently, I had a problem. It's like my game essentially broke. It's like things were not working right, and so I googled the question, and apparently that's a problem with Game Salad. They have a problem converting it to HTML5, and therefore things will break, and it likely. So I'm about to save it out on my iPhone to see if the same problems arise. So the question is, can you save it as like a QuickTime? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe Bill can answer that, because I'm worried. Well, we're going to have to troubleshoot that, Bill, because if the students are making their game with Game Salad, and obviously they have to have it launch somewhere. I can tell you this, if you're working on a Macintosh, for free, you can save it out to be viewed locally, which is all you would need in order to enter your game into the competition. You would only have to save it out locally. But for the PC users, you would have to make sure that it could be converted to HTML5, and there's obvious concerns and problems that might prevent your students from making that happen, that we're going to either have to get to the bottom of or come up with another solution.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And we may end up. Well, I mean, for the game. Okay, two things. First off, recording the video, yes. I think, as everybody already knows, there are lots of software packages out there that'll allow you to read video or record video from what's going on your screen. I've got one on my Mac that's really slick. It actually allows me to use it on my iPad. So I can actually take an iPad game, play the iPad game, and it's recording it to my Mac. It's slicker than heck. So there's ways to do that. If you're on the PC, I'm sure that we can, all figure out a screen capture program that you can run while you're playing the game, and that would give you a screen cap of what you wanted to see. So
Okay.
I think the answer to that is, if you want it to be a video, that's easy. Saving it out as a executable could be a little bit harder, and we need.
Actually, I have this. I think I have an answer.
Okay.
Bill, you said it. I didn't. To enter your piece, to get to submit your piece, you need to show a video of it. Kent.
Right.
Yes, you're right. So you just have to find pick one of the many multitudes of solutions as far as recording your desktop. So that's not a problem. And then as far as presenting it, if your students get selected for the final, they're actually not going to be presenting at the event anyway, because the high school level doesn't actually present at the competition. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, that's our current plan, is that they'll have a separate awards thing, but they won't be presenting. However, they may be at tables.
Okay, so there's not a problem there because you can still play locally. So my game totally works if you play it on my computer.
Right, exactly. So we could do the same thing. They'll bring their Mac laptop or their PC laptop, and it'll play on their machine, and we know it's going to work because it worked when they tested it. And we don't need to worry about this funny publish mode thing that's going on that's difficult to deal with. That's how I'd approach it.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And I just wanted to speak out to if there's any, I'm about to send you an email, and I would like you to please let me know if you are going to be doing this one little assignment so Bill and I know who we can look out for. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that in the next minute. Okay? Are there any other last questions for online before we sign off? Before at least we turn off the broadcast?
So again, Patricia, the assets and stuff for this Monster Whack demo are on the big tent. You're attaching them there?
Yes, they are. They're on the big tent. I'll go ahead and email them to you too, just to make it easier.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll do that now. You're welcome. Thank you very much for your participation.
Sure. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you.